All right, next coding example is pretty standard routine to learn to do CRUD operations, which is anytime you're working with data, these are the four major operations that you can do. You can create new entities, you can read them, you can update them, and you can delete them. And so that's going to be where we go next is a CRUD inside of Express with different routes to do different operations. And so let's start. I'm going to make this a GitHub repo. This is a code along, by the way. So I would encourage everyone to write this code as you're watching this video. So please code along. And you can definitely follow along with creating a repo. Let's say new repository. And I'm just going to say CRUD on, um, you get to pick anything that you want. My, a simple app that I, you know, can mock up for this demonstration is I'm a fan of marketplaces, and so marketplaces, you might have heard of SeatGeek or these are just different popular marketplaces, which are basically you know eBay-like, you direct seller, direct buyer, and so you are a marketplace when you have um, you directly connect the endpoints. There's no middle company, or the middle company is the marketplace, and so Turo for people renting cars, SeatGeek for tickets, and so there's a bunch of VRBO and vacation rentals and Airbnb and Uber. These are all marketplaces, and marketplaces are, uh, once they gain traction, like an Airbnb, they become super profitable. And, marketplaces are awesome. Um, One marketplace, anyways, this is uh, that you can dog watch for people's, dogs, and you can even have a marketplace for people who want to walk dogs. And so Rover is a marketplace for your animals, and I thought it'd be fun to kind of do a marketplace for only dog walking. And so when you have marketplaces like eBay, well, then you also have marketplaces that kind of specialize in doing one thing, right? eBay has car parts and everything else, but this is the Rock Auto is a marketplace just for cars. And so while Rover does a bunch of things with animals, maybe just doing a marketplace just for the dog walking would be the idea. And you know, certainly not a unique idea, but I like the idea. So a marketplace for basically dog walkers. You have people who walk dogs, and you have people who are dog owners, and they want to have their dogs walked for whatever reason, for the exercise, for the health, whatever it may be. Um, and so um, that's kind of what I'm going to do. I'm going to do CRUD and Express, and if you have a dog walker, you know, uh, like you have an employee, because you're going to have to pay, but the dog walker is the thing. The employee, I guess, ultimately is an employee who is a dog walker. So that's going to be what I'm kind of mocking up here. All right, so um, my GitHub repository CRUD on dog walker. um, sure, CRUD on dog walkers, essentially the employees. Um, I'll make this private. Git ignore will be node. License is MIT. And no template. And let's create. And copy my URL. and GitHub desktop to clone. Okay, so let's do file clone repo. Let's go to URL. Let's paste in the URL that you just copied. And I'm going to change this location to go down a folder because it's actually, now I have an Evan Gudmestead folder. This will be CRUD Dog Walker. If I had a more creative name, I like Rover. I don't have a creative name. Someone who's creative out there on the internet, give me a creative name. Um, Now that I've got that, we can open this up with code. And let's go to terminal. Start it with npm init /y. And let's open up our package JSON. We'll fill in our scripts. Start be node server.js. Start dev node mon. And we'll go ahead and bring in .env. So there was a switch .env/config and server.js. So with that being the case, let's install a few more packages. npm i debug, npm i .env, and of course we need Express. See, we'll bring in those dependencies. And we added a marketplace for dog walkers and dog owners. We added a type of module, and that should allow us to boot up a server.js console log. Hi mom. Now we can do npm run start. And we get the console log hi mom. Let's go ahead and create our .env. We'll just
I'm having
start with the port of
Mis-
5002.
Mr. G.
Yes, sir.
I'm having a little issue. Could you go back to the package?
Cool. Um, so one thing that was happening to Grant was his package.json wasn't updating with his dependencies as he had this file opened. It was basically causing conflicts. Um, so I had to have him basically close his package JSON and run those commands, the npm I, the install commands, while package JSON was closed. Um, so Grant, go ahead, and anyone following, make sure that you have the type of module um, in uh, in your package JSON. That's going to allow us to use the newer modules. And then we can say import express from express const app equals express. And then we say app.get root directory resrec. Okay, so this is going to use the environment variable for the port or port 5000. Remember, in order to bring that in, there was a couple of imports we had to do to bring in environment variables here. So let's bring those in. Okay, so what we're looking for, remember this had to be on the first line, import star as dot env from dot env and dot env dot config. App.listen on port and console.log backticks. Listening on port localhost colon. Got it right this time. Port. Save it. And let's see if we can get nodemon running. npm run start dev script. And we set in .env to be port 5002. It says listening on port 5002. So our .env is wired up correctly. And let's control click. Brings up a browser. And I did a console log, but I didn't do a response. And so I noticed this yesterday. You're going to see if your server doesn't send a response back to the client, this is the result. You just get a spinning page. I got a console log. Notice welcome to my homepage was logged. But if I look at my GET request, I don't send a response back to my server. So let's do that. Res dot send. Whoops. I always do this. I always do that backwards. I want to do rec. Not that it matters, but it does. Rec.res. That's why I wasn't getting a send on my res, because I did those backwards. You want to do the request object first. Now there's a send. I had those backwards. That order matters. Um, welcome to my home page. Cool. And Now I notice it rebooted. Ooh, go back here. It rebooted. Localhost. Welcome to my home page. Okay, close, 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 close. And we're ready to start with some routes. Um, so again, what we're doing here is CRUD on dog walkers. Let's um, the
Um,
first,
can we,
yeah,
I have a quick,
please.
yeah, my node mon said that it wasn't starting.
Okay, let's take a look.
So,
Okay, I always like people who are following along kind of tell me some of the bugs that they have encountered, and so um, what happened with Grant was he had a typo, and pretty normal stuff, right? But it was getting an error saying .env was not defined, and it was just a typo in there. So what we're gonna have is pretty unsophisticated in the sense of in the real world we're going to be working with databases, and certainly we will get to work with databases in this class. Um, but since we're not there yet, we're just going to start with storing our data in an array, and so we'll say dog walker is an array of objects, and so um, we'll have object one, we'll have maybe 3 dog walkers. And when it comes to a dog walker, they can have what properties do they have? Well, let's give them an ID, um, like ID 1, and first name, and let's just set like an hourly rate. Um, um, Actually, just to keep the fields, we'll just do a name to keep it a little bit shorter, and a hourly rate of integer 20. So let's populate a few more dog walkers. ID of 2. Uh, this is my boss and the college president. Let's just say they require a little more money hourly. So here we have 3 dog walkers. And the first thing I want to do is um, make a route to basically read that back. Um, so when it comes to CRUD, reading would be like, just give me all of your dog walkers. And so I'm going to read all of the objects in my array. Now, when it comes to your routes, if you are like selecting star, which is like give me all of the records, or reading all records, you might put that at a list route. Um, and so if I'm thinking about what is the route, we oftentimes put it app.get and API. So this is the URL. API, maybe we'll just say walkers/list. And this is kind of like, give me all of your dog walkers. Um, and that's our first argument, rec res. and um, the the list is really the easiest route to write. Instead of sending plain text, res, um, we can send JSON. And so let's do res.json. Instead of sending plain text, we'll just say res.json. And uh, this, I should have maybe do lowercase dog walkers to be camel casing. And I'll just send back all of my dog walkers in the array. And let's just do a console log of list route hit. And so to test this, we're going to go back into Postman. And again, Postman is kind of a browser on steroids, if you will. That's going to allow us to send all sorts of HTTP requests and posts and puts and uh, all sorts. So we'll start here by making a new collection, and this new collection will be dog walker app, and we'll add a request. This request will be list dog walkers, and if we put in the URL, I believe we were running on 5002, so it's going to be http localhost 5002 API walkers list. And so let's make sure we're saved. And I think this is going to error out. It did not. It did work. Um, and so our read operation is quite simple. We'll just return our array of JavaScript objects. The so that's the easiest one. That's the easiest route to do. Um, the next route that we can do, let me think here.
Would you mind going back to the Postman real quick?
Yeah.
And so you set up the dog walker app and then the list dog walkers, and then what do you do after that? I
Um,
got
yeah.
the
So you make this essentially, you make this folder, which is called a collection, and
yes,
then uh, you created a new um, add a request.
yes, I've got that,
Okay.
and I've got the
And
URL in
then
there.
I typed in the URL, and then I clicked on send.
Okay, that wow, that's all I had to do. Okay.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. This is kind of listing all the pets, which is fine. We could do another read operation next, which is going to be reading a single particular dog walker, and so maybe the user would be able to select a dog walker by their kind of a search. Like we'll let them search by ID, and if they search ID one, it returns this dog walker. If they search ID two, if they search ID three, and so this will be something new that we haven't covered, which is where you can actually um, essentially you have a variable that you'll let the end user provide. So app.get, let me show you how that's done. API, pet, and notice here I'm going to put a colon. So normally in these routes, you know, excuse me, these are just paths, right? This is just a path to a resource. But if I put a colon and I say pet ID, a pet, I'll say walker ID. How about dog walker ID? This is essentially creating a variable. And that variable is going to be supplied from the client. So it's going to come in um, rec res, and this is a read a single
Then yeah, I'll show you, or I'll tell you how to.
uh,
Okay, so there'll be a certain name,
dog
name
walker
associated,
object.
and just like three of them, and then yeah, then you'll be able to import the VMs in there and start working.
So we map the networks first, the way they're supposed to be, and
We
then
just add the switches because when we import the files, then if we don't have the names exactly as they list them,
right, the
then I'll
switches
say,
won't work.
well, I'll just say there's an error. Then we can.
Okay, so what we had here is I say, okay, this allows a route to be like API pet
Well,
one,
the
right?
virtualization was just created, so you
That's going to allow in
API
the
sub,
URL to put
create this
an ID, one representing the dog walker, or
that's the
two
VM
or
you would need
three.
to pick
And so
to start the
that is
details.
a
Partway through that lab,
uh, what's referred to as a
I saw
parameter string.
a beer.
And so there's a way to
Okay, all right.
read that,
Well,
um,
once you do that,
which is what we're
partway
going to
through that
do
data
now.
center,
Like, how do
you
you
would
read that
stop
number
because you wanted
one
an answer from PDF.
into a
That's
variable?
that's
So
already filled.
it's like this
Because
const
otherwise we
pet.
couldn't
I keep
process
saying
that
pet
because it
because
takes place.
that was a former example that I did. Dog walker ID equals. Now keep in mind, what comes from the client is the request object. So we could say we have shown rec.body. Remember, rec.body was coming from a form. We're not coming from a form. There's a params. So when you're pulling data out of the URL, that's referred to as a parameter variable. Rec.params and dog walker ID kind of matches this parameter right here. So this name right here has to match this name right here. Um, and I could just call that ID. Constant ID equals rec.params. The point is, I just want to show you that those two values have to match. Our variable here um, doesn't have to match. Again, that's going to allow in the URL API pet, one um, to be passed in. Okay. So what do we do next? So we allow the end user to supply an ID. Um, Going back to our JavaScript days when we had uh, arrays, there were some pretty useful methods on arrays. One was the find method. So we're going to utilize that find method, const found dog walker to read a dog walker out of our array equals dog walkers dot find, and um, this takes a what's called a lambda expression, uh, and so we'll say uh, dog walker, and that's kind of I'm just doing that for dog walker dot ID. So you're finding a dog walker object where the ID equals ID. So this is saying, hey, we're looking for a dog walker where the dog walker ID equals the ID variable that we created on line 28. So this is essentially a lookup. This is a query on our array to look for a dog walker where the ID matches the ID. So that's a read operation. Uh, we could say again, if found dog walker is truthy, we do one thing, else we do something else. Um, walker not found, walker found. In res.json, found dog walker. So we send the object back, and here we'll say uh, res status. Um, haven't talked a lot about error codes. Um, you could put an error code. Are you familiar with like a 404, Grant?
Oh yeah,
Yep.
yeah, not found.
404 means resource not found. So I'm gonna send a status code of 404 back, um, along with a JSON object that says error um, dog walker not found. So instead of just sending a string back, we can send a JSON error property back that says dog walker not found. Okay, so this is reading a single object. Now to test that, we're going to go back into Postman, and I'm just going to save changes and kind of simplify what I'm looking at. Close all my tabs. This is my list, all dog walkers. I'll click new, and I'll call this get dog walker. Oop, that's not it. Where do I put the name? If I save this, request name, hit Control S to save. Get dog walker by ID. And we're going to save this to the dog walker app. Okay, so this is my get dog walker by ID. And I'm going to hit the http ://localhost 5002 API. Did I say walker? See, I keep uh, if I do walker, I'll keep it plural. Walkers, weird word, colon, API, walkers, slash, and I'll say one. Um, so this is a get request. If I save it and I hit that, cannot get API walkers one. API walkers one. Take a look at this. So in troubleshooting this, the first thing I want to do and see is if my route is being hit. I don't think my route is being hit, but I do want to just try console.log walker by ID route hit. Just see if this function is even running. I don't think it is. And you can see it's not logging that, so I this route is not being hit. Great, found my typo. I was missing my forward slash on my route, so it's slash API. So I bring in slash API, and now if I go to API walkers 1, I bring back Evan Gudmested. If I bring in 2, I bring back Charles Corrigan, and so our getting dog walker by ID is the route is working. Again, this little dot here means that you haven't saved your request. So let's go ahead and save it. Control S, and then you can close it. And it's really nice because now I go back to, if I close this here and bring it back and click send, this brings them all back. And then go here and click that request. So we're building the back end. We're building the back end kind of one route at a time. Okay, so that's a couple of read operations. Why don't we do a create operation, right? Create new dog walker. And this could be either a post or a put. And so, um, again, I kind of covered this. Doesn't really matter. I'll do API app dot. You could do a post here, or it could be a put. I was going to do an app.post. Don't forget your first slash. API walkers, and what should be the route name? It's a convention, maybe just new, right? We'll say new here, comma. Um, request response. There's an optional third one here called next. So just FYI, I'm not coding that, but it is optional. Next deals with middleware. We're not really doing a whole lot of that right now, so just not worried about it. Arrow curlies. And start with a console log, new dog walker route hit. And let's here let's in order to read out of the form body, because at the end of the day, when you're signing up a new user, that data is going to be sent across on a form. So remember app.use is going to install some middleware for the application. We need to be able to read from the body of a form. So this is express.url encoded function object extended false. Cool. And so now we can read from the rec.body, which here we're going to need to be able to, allow the user to supply a uh, a name and an hourly rate. And so those are the fields that should be supplied from the user. There's also the ID. In a lot of cases, an ID will be generated for you. And so I'll kind of show you how to generate a random ID that's a little bit more secure than just auto-incrementing IDs. Auto-incrementing IDs aren't the best for various reasons, security being one of them. Let's do npm I nano ID. Nano ID is going to help us generate like what's called a GUID, globally unique identifier. And let's see, import nano ID from nano ID. And then down here, where's our new dog walker? Right here. Const new GUID equals nano ID. You just call this method nano ID, and it'll generate a new globally unique identifier. So it's a real easy package to bring in and generate a random ID. It's not going to follow the convention 1, 2, 3, 4, but it's kind of better anyways. Um, so now what do we need to read from the rec.body? Rec.body is going to have a name and an hourly rate. So let's build a new object here. Const new dog walker equals ID colon is our new GUID. Name is rec.body, and we're gonna bring it in on the name. Oops. So we're gonna have a field coming in from the form. The field's name, the name attribute is the name property. Maybe let's scroll up. I don't like calling that just name. Let's call that full name. The reason I don't like that is because there's a name attribute in the HTML. And that way, kind of down here, I could say full name. So we're kind of trying to avoid conflicts. And finally, the last piece here is the hourly rate. Hourly rate colon rec dot body dot hourly rate. Now, here, we only want to do this. We might want to do some validation here. And if there is no full name and there is no hourly rate coming from the client, then we might not want to construct an object with those null values. So you could do something like if rec.body.fullName and rec.body.hourly rate. So only if these two fields are truthy do we construct our object. So just doing a little data validation here. Else, data, invalid data. And let me format this a little cleaner, right? So if we have a new JavaScript object, new GUID, and then we want to append that. And so we learn how to add a new object to the end of an array with push. And so we have a push method. So our array is called what? Dog walkers. So we have a good one here. Dog walkers dot push new dog walker. Else we say invalid data. So we push our new dog walker, and let's send back a res.json.
It's awesome. What? Oh yeah, absolutely.
We'll send back some JSON, which is just our new dog walker object.
No,
Um,
screw that. I can't. I don't have enough coordination to.
Actually, here, let's send back res.send
I can barely sign my name correctly with my finger.
new dog walker added. new dog walker. Else res dot send invalid data. And we could get more specific about what data was invalid based on what wasn't sent. Um, but this is the gist of it. So granted, a little bit of new code here, but is it more or less making sense, or what questions do you have?
No, I think this is making a lot of sense for me.
Cool, cool. So we have an array of objects, and we're going to add a new dog walker to it if the data is good. Now, again, we don't want to. We can kind of quickly test this with a new request, and we made this a post request. So let's change the type of our request to post. HTTP ://localhost 5002 /API walkers new. And in order to send the data in Postman, I kind of in the last video showed how to send it from a form. But we're going to go over here to this body option. Check this out. So now body, and we click on form URL encoded. And this is going to be where we actually fill in the full name to Billy Smith. And what was the other one called? Hourly rate, I believe. Let's double check that. Hourly rate, hourly rate. So this full name is going to be this rec.body, right? Goes in, you're putting the data in by going body, full name, hourly rate. That's creating these two properties right here. So we set Billy Smith, and it'll say $5 an hour. And if I send this request, our app isn't running. So at some point we stopped it. So we gotta go ahead, npm run the start dev script. So we get that to boot back up. Now if we hit our new route, sending request, new dog walker added, and that didn't exactly show up what I wanted it to, so I can fix that. But let me go ahead and save this request and give it a name, add new dog walker. So save that. But notice it says new dog walker added. Now if I go back to my list and I list my dog walkers, there's my new dog walker. It's got a new GUID, full name of Billy Smith, and an hourly rate of 5. You're going to notice that the hourly rate is a string, so I would want to fix that. I'd want to parse it to an int. But my new dog walker route worked. I did add a new dog walker, and maybe instead of saying new dog walker dot full name, so that'll just be the full name property of my object. And what was the other thing that I wanted to fix? Oh, that needed to be an int. So hourly rate, let's do a parse int on my hourly rate. See. Now, notice I rebooted, right? So I'm making change to the JavaScript, therefore NodeMan is rebooting my server. When I reboot my server, this array doesn't persist, and so if I go back to my list, I should just be back to 3 dog walkers here. Okay, because every time you reboot your server, you lose the data. But if I go to add new dog walker, and now I run Billy Smith with 5, new dog walker added, and if I go back to list, now I've got hourly rate of integer 5 instead of a string 5, so it at least matches the data type. Cool, cool. On our way. So the next route is going to be an update route. And so it's kind of a combination of this one where you have to say, okay, we need a variable to say which one to update, right? So our route's going to include this variable, but also we need in the rec.body, we need to have fields to update either the full name or the hourly rate, or maybe both. And so we need to provide an ID to say what object to update, and we need to provide input from the client for the full name and the hourly rate. So let's do app dot post slash API walkers. And let's see. We already have this route for the walker ID. On a post. No, we don't. We have it on a get, right? So this is a get with an ID. So let's do a post with an ID. So if we do colon dog walker ID, rec res,
You want to install Windows on here too?
we can read that ID const ID equals rec dot params dot dog walker ID, and then we're going to do a find. So let's do a find here. Const found dog walker, kind of similar to what we did before. Dog walkers dot find, and we can just do, dog walker where dog walker dot ID is ID. So here's the object we're going to update, and maybe we change that identifier dog walker to update. So this is our object that we're going to update, and we'll say if rec.body full name. If there's a full name, then we'll update dog walker to update full name equals rec.body dot full name. So this will actually, do what it looks like it's going to do. It's going to update the full name property to what's in the rec.body coming from the client. Now, I don't want to put like an else if, because you got to think about else if there's the other field, but then what if there's both, right? You might need to update both. And so one way of kind of doing this a little differently would be a little bit of ES6 code. So we'll say const. This is called destructuring. Full name, comma, hourly rate equals rec.body. So remember, rec.body is an object, and we can pull properties out of that out of that object with this syntax here. So this is called object destructuring, where you're kind of reading data out of an object and making two variables, right? So we're making a full name variable and an hourly rate variable. And you could say if full name, if it's not undefined, then we'll update the full name like such. Then you can say if hourly rate is not undefined, then we update hourly rate. Dog walker to update dot hourly rate equals hourly rate. And here, now up here, there is a chance that an ID is provided that is not a valid ID. So I would start by saying uh, if you find a dog walker to update, then let's go ahead and update right here. If there's a dog walker to update, then let's do that. Else, let's do a res dot send invalid data. And then here, we'll do a res dot send dog walker updated. Dog walker to update, full name, and dog walker to update hourly rate. Just kind of send the data back that has been updated. So this is our update route. Kind of take in a variable from the params, search for that. If it finds a dog walker to update, do a little object destructuring out of the rec.body, create these two variables, and if the variable is not undefined, then we update the properties and send back a success message. Otherwise, we say, actually, we'll say dog walker not found. It's the better. Um, so let's test it. So this is a post. This is a post request. And I'll save this, call it update dog walker. So we have to do two things here: HTTP ://localhost 5002 API walkers. And we'll just say we're going to update one, which is me. And I'll put my middle name in there. So I go to body to send a full name. Full name Evan Andreas Gudmestead. So we're updating one. We're updating the full name. I'm not updating my hourly rate. That should stay the same. And let's see what it says. Dog walker updated, Evan Andreas Gudmestead, and 20 is my hourly rate. If I go back to listing, Evan Andreas Gudmestead, it did an update. If I passed in a 10, which doesn't exist, we should get dog walker not found. If I go back to 1 and I set another hourly rate to $3 an hour, and I send that, Evan has been updated to 3. All right. Last but not least, we have a delete operation. Um, so, whoops, clicked on the wrong Visual Studio. Let's close that. Um, close. We'll do some cleanup tasks at the end too. Um, because like we talked about yesterday, we might not want to put all these routes in our server.js. We might want to add a router, so we'll go ahead and do that, and we'll change our console logs to debugs and see if there's anything else we want to do to clean up. Finally, last but not least, is our delete. Now, once you kind of have this, you can collapse these routes, which is nice for little organization. As these files get bigger and bigger, can kind of help you consolidate that. Let's do app.delete. So delete is an HTTP method. So we'll say API walkers, and we got to say dog walker ID variable. Rec res read the params const ID equals rec.body dot no sorry rec.params dot dog walker ID. Let's do a read. Let's read our dog walker. Um, actually, instead of reading the object, we're going to read the index, which is the position of the dog walker in the array. So const index is the position of the dog walker in the array, and I'll show you why we need this. We need dog walkers is our array, dot find index is our method. Dog walker where dog walker dot ID is the dog walker is ID. So keep in mind arrays are index 0, 1, 2, and so on. So we're going to find an index, which is going to be, again, like the first dog walker would be me. I'm index 0. If the index is less than 0, we essentially, dog walker not found. Res dot status. You could do a status of 404, resource not found. Dot JSON error dog walker not found. Else we found the dog walker. And the method that we're going to use to remove is called the splice method. We'll do dog walkers dot splice, and we'll say, hey, this is the element to remove, and remove one element, comma 1. So the splice method takes 2 arguments. The first one is where to start removing. So we're going to say start at index 0 and remove one element, or start at index 1 and remove one element, or start at index 2 and remove one element. So the splice is going to be how we remove one, and we can send a little res dot, we can send res.json if we send JSON back, message dog walker deleted. Cool. Where'd I go wrong? There we go. So cool. Let us make a new request. So add requests. This is going to be a delete method. HTTP localhost 5002 colon slash API walkers comma 1. So this should delete the ID of 1, which is me. And in fact, I want to go back here and say dog walker. See if I can use a dog walker number ID deleted. Dog walker with an ID of ID deleted. Give a little bit better message. So if I send that, dog walker with an ID of 1 deleted, and if I go to list dog walkers, you could see we're down to 2. Of course, if I get rid of the number 2, dog walker with an ID of 2 deleted, and they're disappearing. And if I say 20, dog walker not found. So let's save that. Rename that request. Rename delete dog walker by ID. You can see how this is really nice and organized in Postman. So I always recommend, giving your request, like saving them, and then you can come back to them and run them anytime, right? So save each one, put them in a folder, keep them organized. You can close them. They're all saved in your account. Like you'll notice, like all of these, like I've got a bunch of this stuff for them. Just the last time I ran the class. So that's kind of the end of the CRUD. I said I wanted to do some cleanup tasks, which would be refactoring this to get a lot of the routes out of the server. And so that'll be the last thing that we do here. Well, a couple of cleanup tasks. That'll be one. So we've done this once. Let's do it again with the routers. Okay, so when I'm going to clean this up, the first thing I'll do over here is close. Let's make a new folder called routes and a subfolder called API. And this is what I call it, dog walkers. Let me go back here. Walkers. So I'm going to make inside of here, I'll make a new file called walkers.js. And I'm going to copy just one route. We'll just start with my list. I'm going to start with my list. Paste that into here. I also have to extract out the data and put the data in here. Now, So cut and paste. Um, remember what we need to do for this router. We need to import Express from Express. And we have to basically create a miniature version of Express. So const router express.router. So this is
Okay.
um, now instead of app.get, it's router.get. And so, this router is not the full-blown Express. It's just a miniature version. Um, and so kind of refactor that way. Um, and so now back on the server JS, okay, the last thing in our router is we need to come down here and export our router variable as Walker router. So we can bring this variable back over here. We can import our router, Walker router from router. So we have kind of our two syntaxes, right? So when you're installing from a package, right, this is destructuring as well. Um, you provide the quotes and you don't have to provide a relative path. But if you're providing a path from a file that we've created, walkers.js, this references walkers.js. You don't include the JS there. You need the relative path. So there's Walker router. And then, so this gets us to the file. But then there's one more line, which is the path the user will follow to the endpoint. And so that's app.use slash API slash walker and
One trick I learned with these
walker router.
that when you're booting up your VMs, boot up your PC first.
Then the last thing is that we no longer need that full. We don't need API walkers here. It just becomes as such slash list. So the full path is slash API slash walker slash
Usually
list.
pretty typical, but I noticed.
Broke it somewhere.
No, unfortunately not. Let's look at your other choices.
And did you mean to import? You know what? Do you have to include the .js here? Okay, so now I'm getting a different error. Cannot access app before. Oh, haha. We create the app right here. So let's use it right there. Do you see? So I did have to include the .js. So that was one fix. And then I was trying to do app.use before I created the variable. So that's two. If I control save, now I'm up and running. Okay, so I did need the full path. Notice if I take that walker.js off, I forgot if I needed it or not. Sometimes you forget the simple things. So you do need the JS to the local file. And then you needed to kind of bring in the router, use the router in the right path. Now, all that just to say, I'm just refactoring this. Let's see if my list still works. List of dog walkers. And if I send that, okay, different error message. So let's see that crash dog walkers is not defined. Well, Certainly looks defined to me. Walker. Oh, was I hitting the? Yeah, I am hitting list. Dog walker is not defined. Dog walkers return dog walkers. Let me pause.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm noticing it's not logging the right route. It's hitting a different route. So what I might need to do is refactor the rest of my routes because again, right here, Walker by ID route hit. It's not hitting my list route. So I'm going to refactor the rest of these to bring these over. Now, once I've done it once, it's really easy to do a few more times. I'm going to cut the rest of my routes, and save, and paste them all right here. And then all you have to do is change it from app to router. Router.get, router.post, router.post, router.delete. Okay, so if I save, we're up and running. And let's see if we get a different error. Okay, good, different error. Yeah, Grant brought to my attention that we need to delete the route that we already have API walkers slash new, API walker slash dog walker. Okay, let's save and again minimize. Okay, now back here, walkers, plural. That's my problem. I had walkers singular versus walkers plural. So that was why my list route wasn't being hit, but there we go. So it's slash API slash walkers slash list. Now if I go to get dog walker by ID and I click send, we get 3. Add a new dog walker, go to the body, Billy Smith and 5. Nano ID is not defined. This is pretty normal in refactoring, is that, hey, I don't need Nano ID over here anymore. I need Nano ID over here. And now, different error. New dog walker cannot read properties of undefined reading full name. So it is a problem with my new rec.body full name Billy Smith. So it's saying full name is undefined. API dog walker's new full name Billy Smith. This is a post API walkers new. It is hitting the new walker route. So let's do this console. It doesn't like it's not liking rec.body.full name. Console log rec.body.full name. So we got full name coming in. Reboot my server. See here, rec.body undefined. When I put rec.body here, saying rec.body undefined, why? Well, this line here, app.use URL encoded, we need to bring that over here, and we'll do the same thing for router. So we can read, instead of app.use URL encoded, it'll be router.use. So we can read from the body. Aha! So that, yeah, we discussed that on what that does. Allows us to read from the body. Full name, Billy Smith. Now we're cooking. So moving on past that, updating the dog walker. We're going to update one with my middle name. Updated and list. Cool. Finally deleting by ID. 20 should not be found. And dog walker of 1 should be deleted. Awesome. And finally, let's update with debug. And so kind of upgrade our console logs to debugs. These import statements, if you see their syntax is sometimes different. Sometimes you do this destructuring, sometimes you bring everything in. So with debug, I'm trying to remember. It's a couple. I looked it up here. So let's bring in debug here. Import debug from debug. And we'll call this const debug walker router equals debug app walker router. Now that's one step, but also remember there was something in the environment variables that we had for debug. .env, and let me remember what that was. And so inside of .env, we did debug equals app : star. And so now we can replace console log with debug walker router. Kind of our upgraded. So if we hit our route, which is list all walkers, we could see coming from the walker router, list route hit. So any console log now can be replaced with our debug channel. Wherever you want your debugs. Let's see if there are any other packages that we brought in that we might want to test. Package JSON. So we did debug, we did .env, we did Express, and we did nano ID. So we used each one of those packages. We did CRUD, we did a React router, not React router, we did an Express router. There is something different called React router we'll get into on the front end. And that's the end of that demo.